It's the post-match phone-in. We just had a full start off camera, but we won't talk about what we were going to talk about. Look, it's another game, another point, another performance that was but with me to digest this and take your calls, it's my co-host, as always, it's Mark Ryman. How are we getting on, Mark?
Yeah, good to be back. Thanks, Ollie. Yeah, as you said, copy and paste from a few weeks ago. Terrible weather, very average performance against a team that probably is pretty gutted they didn't take all 3 points, right? But a point, I suppose, at home after two disappointing away performances. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and the main thing was to sort of stop the rut and maybe get some semblance of performance that we've been promised by Rob Edwards, Gary Sweet. But the reality is, it looks like it's not clicking at the moment. No one's the players. Some players try, but there's no semblance of tactical structure. There's no semblance of players knowing what they're doing, and all you see is Rob Edwards barking orders out on the sideline. You see Richie Kyle next to him barking orders, Paul Trollope on the gantry barking orders. I said it all in my post match, but I don't know where we go from
Mm.
here because normally fans stay regardless. The weather yesterday was terrible, but when the players
Yeah.
were doing the lap of honour,
And for me now, it's when not if with Rob. I'd be really interested to hear from anyone who thinks that Rob is still the person that can turn this round. Actually, so if you are there and you're on our YouTube and you're listening to this, please join it because I'd like to hear that side of things. We all want Rob to do well, but I'm past the point now where I think he can turn this round. Um, there doesn't seem to be improvement. We're just hoping for the same thing week in, week out while we sort of sleepwalk our way to a relegation battle.
yep. It's not even sleepwalking at the moment. It's absolutely abject. I think my internet is a bit up and down. Should I pause this and I'll reset my router out here? For those that don't know, I'm out in the garage. The internet's spotty at the best of times, and then with the storm, it hasn't been great. So I will park this. I'll reset the router, and we'll be back in 5 minutes, I guess. Yeah. Because my frame rate, it's I don't know. Let us know in the chat. Is it all right? Hit us with the thumbs up or something. Because to be honest, I'm seeing like the drop frame rates going up and down. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to. People are saying it seems fine now. Um. Well, what do you reckon, Ryman? Shall we reconvene? I'll reset my router and then we'll go again.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
Let's double check just in case it
Sweet.
drops later. I think
Good
we'll
shout.
we'll sort it now and
Might be worth ending the broadcast and then going back. I don't know. I have no idea. Don't know. I'm still getting dropped frames. Um, don't know. I might stop it and start it again. Are we live? Wait, are we live here? No, it went. I can go back to the main page and. Oh, people are saying they can hear me. Okay, we're back. We're back. People say they can hear me, so might as well turn the camera on, right? Oh wow, this is so.
uh
This is so low rent, isn't
we are
it?
slick. We
We
are slick. You can
yeah.
tell how
Oh,
professional we are.
good thing I didn't
Hey,
say
I don't want to get
anything.
any blame for this, by the way.
Good thing I didn't say anything wildly embarrassing. Um, Right. Well, we're back and it's the
Thanks for
post-match
change.
phone-in, right? So we're going to be discussing Luton Town 1, Hull 1. Let's be professional about this, shall we? So with me, as
This
always, my
phone-in's as good as
co-host.
the performance.
At least we've turned up. But no, those are the away performances, aren't they? So I'm here with my co-host Mark
Yeah,
Ryman,
that's right.
and should we get our first caller in? I hope the internet
I
holds
think
up.
we should.
I have to apologize about my internet because this is my garage that I'm in, and so I'm using like a Wi-Fi booster, and it doesn't really work. As soon as you go from a different building, like in my garage, the winds just ruins the Wi-Fi. Normally it's quite good, but the storm hasn't helped at all. Blast you, Storm Dara. I don't know why they give storms such funny names. Apparently I called it Hull. We drew to Hull. No, we didn't draw to Hull. That's all the whiskey I've been drinking this evening. No, we drew to Swansea. It says it right there on the thing. Right. Should we get some?
Let's get started.
Let's get someone else talking. And then we got Matt. Okay, Simon then Matt.
Right.
Good evening, Simon. You can talk, so I don't need to, mate.
Sigh.
Oh, he's not here either.
This is the most
Finally.
professional I've ever been a part of.
Yeah, well, my internet's not holding up.
Okay.
That's the case, mate.
Shambles.
Yeah, that's the case. It's shambolic.
Well, at least I can hear.
Oh, I can barely hear you as well.
Ollie, you good?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good. Don't let the haters get me down.
There's always some of them.
Yeah. So what did you think of the performance yesterday?
If I said anything, is it going to be any different to the things I say every week this season?
I know.
I doubt
Deja
it.
vu, innit?
Very much doubt it.
We could say the same thing about this match as the last match, as the match before, as the match before. We have no identity. And as I said straight after the game, this isn't bad form anymore. This is the norm. This is how things are now. This is how we play football. What are we going to do about it?
I don't know.
Well, yeah, that's the question, isn't it? Oh, and I mean, what are the board going to do about it? I mean, that's the question. That's the real question, right?
Yeah. At the end of the day, the board have put themselves in a position where they've spent the last month complaining about unscrupulous agents, but the football on the pitch has put them in a position now where they're going to have to deal with those unscrupulous agents who are probably going to demand even more money now, considering where we are in the league.
Exactly that. And the longer we leave it, the worse that position becomes, right? Same with all of these things. Same with managers. Same with all, same with players. Same with managers. Sorry, the situation becomes harder and harder to deal with the longer we just stagnate, because that's probably the best word for how we've been as a football team this season. We just stagnated throughout the season. It's getting Lenny Lawrence levels of hard to watch. I don't know whether Ollie agrees with that as a fellow Lenny Lawrence observer when we were growing up.
I have a massive soft spot for Lenny Lawrence because if it wasn't for him driving fans away, I would never have got a season ticket in '96. So, I'm being told.
I think there'll be a few spaces.
I'm being told the internet is absolutely atrocious. I apologize to everyone watching. I can see the drop frames. It's like 50%. Every other frame is getting dropped. I'm really sorry, everyone. And people are telling me I've got to drill some holes in my wall and
here's our
hardwire
problem,
to my garage.
right?
Go on, Si.
Here's our problem. We have got a squad full of players. We've got a full squad, essentially, minus that spot they left open for Tom Lockyer. Yeah, we've got a full squad. We desperately need new faces in. But who's going to come in January to buy the likes of Corley Woodrow? Who's going to come in? Are we going to move Pelly on? Is anyone going to come in for these players? And if they do, is it going to be insulting offers? Because we need a clear out because they're keeping the manager. So if they're keeping the manager, then it's personnel who are going. So what are you going to do?
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. And you know what? If we get relegated to League One, it becomes even more of an issue because for money, players that were valued at like 15s and 10s are going to be valued. It's a real issue. It's and I don't want to see the club drop down into League One. It's the last thing I want to see. But at the same time, it's getting to that level. And Ryman said it before we went away. We're sleepwalking into a relegation battle. And I've seen 6 relegations, and to me, this looks like a side that will get relegated. There's no cohesion. There's nothing.
This is worrying because I was for ages. Before last week, I was like, yeah, Edwards, he could turn it round. We could give him some time, but no, I'm seeing what I'm seeing, and there's nothing different. There's nothing different. It's all the same. Current play up the field, slow, uninspired, zero pace, sticking with a system that has been figured out. What are we doing? We have to do something different, and the board, in sitting on their tons of money, have to do something about it because they have a duty of care. How many times have they said in the past, "We're just the custodians of this club. We're just the custodians of this club." Well, as the custodians of this club, you have to do something to try and set this ship back on the right course.
It's now objectively the right thing to do, isn't it? To get rid of Edwards. And it's a question of now, how long is it going to take for them to bite the bullet in terms of either money or a little bit, I think, of stubbornness, and this kind of narrative, we don't want to be like Watford, etc. I mean, he's been at the club for over 2 years, but fine. I think it's a mixture of the two. I think it's both that and Gary's sweet stubbornness in terms of, and the rest of the board in not pulling the trigger now, because the lineup, the performances, nothing has changed since the international break. Nothing has changed whatsoever. There's been no improvement. There's been no change. We've had 3 international breaks, right, where we've come back from them with a scrappy win followed by some disappointing games, and nothing has improved since then. They have
That point,
to make a decision.
that
I would
point.
argue that.
Go on,
Sorry, what?
Mark. Sorry.
No, it's all right. I think it's a connection. I was just gonna say, I would argue that nearly every club in the league would have got rid of Rob Edwards by now. Maybe I'm being harsh, but I think most
No,
clubs, nearly every
absolutely.
club in the league now,
100%.
would have got rid of Edwards by now.
There's a loser mentality that has seeped through into the club. We're so used to losing, we've forgotten how to fight. We got nothing on the. We offer very little. We offer very much the same thing week in, week out, which has been sussed. And sorry to Gary Sweet and David Wilkinson and all those men sitting atop the club. You can't plead poverty in your negotiations when you're sitting on gold thrones, lads.
Yeah. And sitting on seats that cost 3k a pop, or so I've heard. I don't believe that. Like, who would spend 3k on a seat at a stadium? That's madness. Look, a couple of words on yesterday's performance, though. Kaminsky being man of the match yet again. The goalkeeper shouldn't keep needing to
It's
be man
hard
of
for
the
him not
match.
to be man of the match when he's facing 20 shots a game.
Yeah, well, realistically, he shouldn't be man of the match every single game. Every single home game, Kaminsky is man of the match. And frankly, that shouldn't be the case. Victor Moses, he did the best he could, left wing back. I thought it was a very good performance from him. Attacking, he's good. He's good attacking, but obviously his proper position's on the right wing, but he's being shoehorned in on the left wing because we've ended up with a completely unbalanced squad. Jordan Clark, I thought Jordan Clark was good. Tom Krause was good. Um, the real problem is how the midfield is set up and how easy it was for Swansea just to pick through. And I think I might have sent a video to you, Ryman, earlier on WhatsApp. I said this sums up our season. It was Swansea, quick triangle through our midfield, and then Mads Anderson in a foot race against, I can't remember who Swansea's winger was. I don't think it was Pert Harris at that point. And Anderson just
Yeah,
sort
you
of
sent it to me. Yeah,
ambling along. He doesn't look right.
miles off it.
We've absolutely ruined him.
Yeah.
We are going into the Christmas period. We're going into the Christmas period, lads, with our fit centre backs being McGuinness, Holmes, and Anderson.
Well, Anderson doesn't look fit, mate. He doesn't.
Well, he's the only one who can come on the pitch right now, can't he? Because Menke's out till God knows when.
I know.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why he didn't.
Do we
have
know
the
any more
surgery.
about Burke?
Oh, who knows, mate? Burke, he'll play one game. He'll be out for like another couple of games.
Well, it depends where he plays him. I think if he plays him right centre back, he'll stay fit for a bit longer than if he plays him at right wing back and expects him to mark someone like Solomon. But that might help.
Worrying. It's worrying times. Look, lads, I've got to go because the dog's demanding to go outside. More of the same every week, and the ball continues to sit on their hands. And something's got to change. Something has to give because the split in the fan base now is now very big. And the side on Edwards out grows larger and larger all of the time. And I'm now in that camp, and I was resistant to it for the longest time.
Whoa, for the longest time. Sorry, you just put a song in my head, mate. That's all.
I'll let you guys go on to the next caller, but food for thought. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah. Have
Cheers,
a good evening,
take
mate.
care, mate.
Have a good one. You too, lads.
Ollie's lost it. Right.
Yeah, people are saying there's no sound, there's no video. I don't know. People in the comments, let us know. Do we continue with this phone in? Because is it going all right? I have no idea. So I'm just having fun with it, really. Because as you said, we discussed this before, didn't we? We could have literally just taken any home performance post-match phone in.
Yeah.
And
100%.
And just replayed it verbatim because it's always the same, isn't it?
Yeah. We could have done just edited the kind of like Kindle word Swansea instead. What a lackluster performance against Swansea. And then just do the next one over and over again while we draw or scrape some kind of miracle win. Yeah, okay.
I know. Right. Well, I brought in our next speaker. We have Matt. He's always very good, very grounded, and he depresses all of us by speaking nothing but the truth. Good evening, Matt. How are you getting on, mate?
Am I ever going to speak to you again when we're all happy?
No, tell me about it.
Mate,
Starting to feel like a jinx.
Since we started this podcast, I think we've won 9 times.
God, it's depressing, isn't it?
Yeah. So, what did you think, Matt?
Yesterday, I watched the game in a slightly different perspective. I watched it as a neutral yesterday.
Interesting. And how did that feel as a neutral? Were you thinking, oh my God, which team was in the Premier League last season?
There's a few things I noticed yesterday. One was we've got absolutely nobody in the team that wants the ball, whereas Swansea always wanted the ball. We've got nobody that... I don't think anybody keeps the ball for more than about 5 seconds in our team. It's like the proverbial hot potato. You just want to get rid of it straight away. Which, we had Barkley last year. He wanted the ball all the time. But we've got nobody. Swansea just kept the ball. And it's not about just tippy-tappying it around at the back. It's about having a bit of composure and being confident enough in yourself. And that's obviously the biggest thing at the moment, the confidence. They've got no confidence to do anything. The second thing I noticed is our football intelligence at times is pathetic. Even to simple things like jumping to head a ball. I lost count of the number of times yesterday Jordan Clark was already on his way down before the ball got to him. He didn't play the wind well yesterday. First half, we were kicking into the wind, yet they were winning every header. Second half, they were kicking into the wind and still winning every header. Yeah, it was a weird game yesterday because I've never done that with Luton before. But the atmosphere was so poor and it was so cold. I just thought I'm going to take all emotion out of this and see if I can try and work out what's going on because it's not good. It's not good at all at the moment. It's yeah.
So what
I'm even
what
contemplating.
needs to change, Matt? What has to change?
Edwards has got to go now. I'm not convinced whoever comes in. How many of those top 6 teams would take any of our players? I'm not sure any.
Yeah, you're probably right now. It's difficult though, isn't it? Because after such an abysmal start to the season, or halfway through the season as we are now, I mean, you're right. At the moment, I don't think any top club would take any of our players at all. Not even our goalkeeper, really, and he hasn't done a huge amount wrong. But these are also players that in the Premier League and in the Championship before that have shown what they can do. I know just with our eye test, they are nowhere near the levels that we know that they can be at. And for the length of time that they've done it, I mean, you take Morris, for example, the length of time that he played that well for us under the Championship, that can't be a fluke or one-off, etc. So that, they're certainly better than what they're showing. I mean, I get your argument, and it's definitely questionable about where they do fall in that category. But yeah, it's for me, it's like you said, it's the lack of kind of football intelligence, the lack of tactical awareness. But at least if a new person comes in, then we might actually get like an idea of or a rough plan of how we might want to go and play football, because I really feel like that's completely gone.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that a new manager won't change it and it won't get better, but I think people need to understand that when a new manager comes in, we may not get that bounce that other people get because these players' confidence is as low as it's ever going to get. You can see that. I mean, what was Matt Anderson doing yesterday, passing it out for a corner? I mean, I don't know what he was attempting to do, but you just look at it and you just think, what are you doing? You're a championship footballer. And
Yeah,
you can't even do the basics. I mean, some of the passing yesterday, the one that sticks in my head was Morris. And stand in G block in the main stand, and I was right behind his pass. And as he was going to pass it, I just thought, you're going to pass it straight to them. You could see it. What are you seeing? Because there was no Luton player anywhere near where that ball was going. Like, what are you seeing? Are you expecting them to have the intelligence to make a run? Because they're not that good.
yeah.
And it's just, I always almost wonder at the moment sometimes if some of them are trying too hard.
It probably a bit of that. They're so desperate to do well, but they're also just seem to be lacking complete direction. I mean, in terms of what you were saying about care of the football, I mean, I was at Norwich. We were totally in control in times of that game. When it was 2-2, and actually when it was 1-0. For the few minutes that it was 1-0, they offered no threat. And actually, I didn't think. Well, I came out of that game interestingly saying I wouldn't be that surprised if QPR turn them over the next week. I know, and that sounds genius now, doesn't it? But because they weren't, we gave them everything that they had. And through terrible decision making, it's just it's bewildering about how naive some of our play is, right?
Yeah, I mean Norwich. I don't think they're that good. You look at the table before they played. Who did they play on Tuesday when we played Leeds? Plymouth.
Batter
Yeah,
them.
Plymouth. Yeah, that's where they hammered
Before,
Plymouth.
before that Plymouth game, we'd won more games this season than them, even though they were above us. We'd won 5 and they'd won 4.
A lot of draws.
They're not. Yeah, and that's another issue we have. We don't. I mean, I know we did yesterday, but we haven't drawn enough.
10
We
losses
haven't.
this season.
Yeah, we haven't drawn. But that
Joint
Norwich
most.
performance last week, that was a classic championship from the previous season without the errors. Because when we beat them 1-0 when Morris scored, and I think it was a Tuesday night or a Wednesday night, they had a lot of the ball then. They put us under a lot of pressure, but we defended well.
Yeah.
Last weekend, we just defended like, well, not even Sunday League football, let's be honest. It was like schoolboy. Yeah, last week wasn't as bad. It was if you take out the individual errors, we probably draw that at worst. But
Yeah.
that's one game, isn't it? From a lot of games. But I mean, yesterday you could just see as soon as they scored, the players just were like, "Here we go again."
Mm.
I mean,
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
I mean, I mean, the fourth official holds up the board 5 minutes to go. You'd expect us to be battering them for 5 minutes, but and their fans to be biting their nails and counting down the clock. But it wasn't. They were all over it. We're the home team. I mean, the question is,
All over us.
where have Luton gone? Where have the Luton that we all know gone? And I'm not talking about the last 5 or 6 years. Everyone says, "Oh, you only come into the watching Luton when times have been good." Even back when I first started watching the '90s, there was fight. You may not have had the best players, you may not have had the best team, but there was fight and there was passion. But it's just gone. It's gone from everything. It's gone from the fans. It's gone from the team. I mean, the atmosphere. I mean, yesterday again was second home game in a row was terrible, really bad, and there was a lot of empty seats yesterday.
Yeah, just wait for Stoke. It's gonna be dreadful on Tuesday night. Hopefully the weather isn't as bad, so people can kind of get amped up for it. But I completely echo what you're saying. There is no fight from us, and I both myself and Mark, we started going in the mid-90s, and that the Lenny Lawrence team, that it wasn't a vintage place, it wasn't vintage players, but we had players that had the fight. Steve Davis marshalling the back, Gary Waddock in the middle. He was 36. He was ancient for football in the 90s, but he still had bite. And then we had, I was discussing this earlier with someone. I think I was discussing with Luton Town fans on Discord, and I was saying, you know what? I think it's going the same way as it was under Lenny Lawrence. And by that, I mean, we're going back to the times when we're getting 4, 5, 6,000 in the stadium. I feel attendances will drop to about 7,000 probably. Because it's just alarming right now, like the amount of empty seats, people not wanting to stick around. I think there are only 6,000 season ticket holders, and to be honest, most of them, like, I'd say maybe 10% don't turn up like week in, week out. So we could be looking at a time where it's just season ticket holders, and then when the performances are so bad, even the season tickets can't even be bothered to turn up. And that Lenny Lawrence team, there are some iconic players from my childhood in that team. I love Dwight Marshall. His first name I had on the back of my shirt. Liam George. Loved Liam George. He was a very average footballer, but at the same time, in the 90s, we had the youth academy. Paul McLaren, Matthew Spring, Liam George, Stuart Douglas. We had all these players coming through. Our youth in the 94-95 season, they went through to the FA Youth Cup semi-final and lost to Man United. So that's what's alarming. And I look at our youth setup now, and I see someone here said we should put out the under-21s, and we'll they can't be worse than what we're putting out. But from top to bottom right now, it's alarming. I understand we're a Category 3 academy. I understand that, but we lose all our talent, and at the same time we have players that are literally on the cusp of the first team and they're not getting a go. Like, are you going to tell me that Zach Nelson's gonna do any worse than what we're putting out there at the moment? If we're playing a 4-3-3, have Morris or Elijah in the middle, and then Brown and Zach Nelson either side of him. Just do something different. Give the youth a chance. Are we saying that a barely fit Mads Anderson is going to do a better job than a Joe Johnson, who we could literally just put on? He was on the bench yesterday. Put Joe Johnson on, and then you can go flat back four with Hashioka on the right back. There's just so much wrong right now, and so much I want to call out.
Yeah, all of those things.
I think if they also played some of the youngsters, I think they'd get more of a break from the fans.
Yeah, and it would lift the
And
crowd,
if they
wouldn't
made a
it?
mistake, if they made a mistake, the fans aren't going to grow.
It would lift the
Well, yeah,
crowd,
so
a Zach Nelson on the team sheet. Put Joe Taylor on the team sheet. It would lift the entire crowd.
yeah, I think the time's come. I think he's got to go now. I think they've just got to bite the bullet. I don't subscribe to the viewpoint that they haven't done it because of the money. I think you were right in what you said earlier. I think because they're fans, they're trying to take the moral high ground over Watford a little bit too much now. We're not Watford. If the sacking club of the Championship was Portsmouth or Derby, I don't think they'd even talk about it like that.
But
I
remember,
think that's where them being where their fans is going to be their downfall because they maybe aren't making the right decisions.
I know. I feel they're
I
a
also
bit
think they're
clouded.
embarrassed because they know they've let him down.
Yeah. No, but at the same time, they might be embarrassed because they gave him a 4-year deal, and they're worried about that. Because you get rid of someone in the first year of their 4-year deal, it looks like you effed up. You get rid of someone in the second or third year of a 4-year deal, they
surely that's where they just need to hold their hands up. So they made a mistake. We're human.
Of course they do.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
exactly
It
what
didn't
they
work
need.
out.
And they've done that
Didn't work out,
before
did it?
as well.
No one's gonna.
It's happened before. Like we had 5 managers in 5 seasons in the conference.
They're also going to destroy Rob's legacy as well by keeping him there, right? Because the games go on and on. Eventually, as amazing as that playoff final win was, that will get replaced in everybody's recent memory by this season. Eventually, and if the club don't act, then it will be to the detriment of his career and his legacy at Luton Town at the same time. So it's not just about management; it's that too. And exactly. Head in the sand at the moment. It really feels like that.
There's plenty of managers in the game that have just disappeared off the face of the earth because of something bad's happened.
They all come back eventually.
There's a lot of managers you think.
Look at Ian Holloway. He's back and amongst it.
Yeah. But you think of people like Herbishley and stuff like that, they just kind of disappeared.
Bloody hell, I forgot about him.
Yeah, he was an amazing manager for Charlton, wasn't he?
Just for
Just
Charlton.
disappeared and people like that.
Just for Charlton, though.
Yeah.
Only Charlton. Right, thank
He's
you.
Nathan Jones, isn't he?
Well, yeah, he works at one club. Thank you very much, Matt. We'll get the next person on. Appreciate you calling in, mate.
Matt.
Right. Oh wow. Queuing up out here. Should we bring in
No.
Steve? Yeah.
Sure.
Am I still
Can't
here?
remember who was next. I think it was Steve or Optimistic Hatter. Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. Let's
I
bring
can hear you.
in.
Yeah,
Let's bring
it's either
in
Steve or
Steve.
Optimistic Hatter.
Yeah. All right, Steve. How are we getting on this evening, mate?
Better than this time yesterday, let's be honest about that. My team won. So, yeah,
And you've warmed up now.
that's going better than Luton at the minute.
Yeah.
Although the injury situation for that team is literally about as bad as at Luton. I think I'm the next guy to play defensive back or linebacker for them.
Yeah, 100%. And so what did you make of yesterday? And also touching upon your thoughts on, you said they should bring in a sports psychologist. Talk about that a bit as well.
Well, I'm sure they probably have one, but I think my principle is thinking about how we fix the current situation. Looking at yesterday, I mean, I listened to the last 2 games. I was at work for the last 2 games, Norwich and the Norwich one and the Hull one, and a mixture of that and watching what was in front of me yesterday. The problem isn't tactical, and it isn't necessarily how we play in the periods of the game where we play okay. The first 10 minutes after half-time yesterday, we were absolutely fine. But it just seems like anytime one thing goes very wrong, and doesn't even necessarily need to lead to a goal, because I think yesterday it was Amari Bell losing the ball on halfway that turned it. Mm-hmm. Everyone's heads go down because there is a complete lack of confidence. And we've gone from dominating that first 10 minutes, playing somewhat like 2 seasons ago, to being dominated. And whenever we had the ball to try and turn things around, people were not doing things that the players that were here 2 years ago were not doing things that they would have done 2 years ago to give options or make runs. And the other players also that weren't here 2 years ago also just weren't making runs they were making in those first 10 minutes and weren't showing for the ball and doing those type of things. Mm-hmm. And yes, we can say Edwards has got to go, and there's a multitude of reasons for that. But I'm not sure changing that actually fixes the problem. I did make a joke that the only thing that is going to change that is a world-class sports psychologist. So the two people I'd give the job to is Dr. Steve Peters or Mike Brearley. But yeah, that's what will fix this, because the little periods in games, I mean, the Sunderland game we lost, that's what we want to see. We were excellent. And I still think when we break down what has happened this season, there are a lot of things that have gone wrong. I'm sure that the board have made mistakes in this off-season, not just by giving Rob Edwards a new contract, which in hindsight looks like a gamble that hasn't paid off, or whatever's happened in the transfer window in the summer, and how much responsibility goes on the recruitment team, how much responsibility goes on the board, not quite adjusting to where we're seen in the transfer market food chain now as a parachute payment club, and how much of that goes on Rob Edwards. Because let's be honest, the biggest name signing we've had in the entire time Rob Edwards has been here, that is very much a Rob Edwards signing and not a recruitment signing that we all know about, is Ryan Giles, and that is quite possibly the worst value for money in terms of ignoring the fact that we basically made our money back. But in terms of what he produced in a Luton shirt for Luton Town, that's the worst value for money of any of the signings we've actually made.
I don't think he was so bad. I don't think Ryan Giles was that bad. I think he needed more of a chance, really.
How it's worked out, whatever. Yeah, possibly, but would you have dropped Doughty for him?
No.
Doughty outplayed him last season. It's a simple matter of fact. And I can't imagine that he expected to be the backup, and I presume Giles didn't take it particularly well, I'll be honest, and that's probably the main reason why. But going back to the problems more immediately, that is it. And as I mentioned before, and again, this isn't necessarily a reason to keep Rob Edwards, but one of the reasons we have this lack of confidence is the start of the season. Those 10 games where Rob Edwards had decided in the off-season he wanted to completely overhaul everything about how we played. That didn't work. And then he started trying anything he could, just literally coming up with things week on week to try and fix it. And none of it was working until we had the October international break. And I think you called it on Discord in the first couple of weeks of the season. It would get the October international. Somebody mentioned it on Discord. It would get the October international break. It'll go back to trying to do what we did 2 years ago. He did that. We were average against you-know-who, but they were awful. We won 3-0. We were fundamentally excellent against Sunderland and were very unlucky to lose. But I think the key moment that a lot of this comes down to is all of that has led to a very fragile incompetence team. And then the minute we conceded against Coventry, that is the turning point. And I don't mean the winner, I mean the first goal. Because we weren't very good against Coventry and we're 2-0 up. They pulled one back, and I think that is the turning point, because everything we've seen in any game after that has come. Even the whole win, we were struggling in that game to hold on to that win in the same way we were struggling to hold on to a point yesterday afternoon.
So where do we go from here, Steve? Are you Edwards in, Edwards out? Or sports psychologist?
I'm of the opinion. I'm not sure it matters. Like I say, I'd still be nervous about who we bring in, because 90% of the managers out there will have their style are more wedded to their style of play that they have and they want to implement than Edwards has been, or Nathan Jones was before him. And very few of them would want to play a style of play that actually does suit our players, which is the style of play that got us promoted 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And because that is not seen as a sexy style or a style that will get you a job in the Premier League or progress your career. And too many coaches these days come in and want to show what they can do in that way. Russell Martin is the number one example of this. He's going to go down
He's a fraud,
with
mate.
a team that has looked awful because they're not as good as the teams are playing at playing that style. And he's so committed to it, he isn't going to change it. And Martin is just the case of most managers these days. And if we did that, if we got a manager like that wanted to implement his style and it wasn't a direct football high pressing style, we would get relegated. That is the number one fact. There is more. If that happened, there is more chance of us getting relegated than if Rob Edwards is to stay. That is not a reason to keep Rob Edwards, but that is what I am very, very nervous of were we to get rid of Rob Edwards. The problem we have is if we keep Rob Edwards, I don't think there's any way of fixing the confidence issues.
But
so
Steve,
we're in a and it's which pile of dirt do you want to go and put your face into?
To suit Rob Edwards' style. So we've got a mishmash. I agree with you in part, but I do think that we have got players there in Shanda Baptiste, to Heath Chong, for example. Lamine Fanny's coming in as well, who at McGuinness is supposed to be one of those, who are supposed to be ball playing, possession style footballers. I know they're not showing it, but that's what they're supposed to be.
No question McGuinness is not that. It's quite obvious that McGuinness was a desperate signing made because we needed a centre-half for that time.
Well,
Anyone that
I don't disagree.
I tell you what. Sorry to cut in here. I'm sorry to cut in. I was watching McGuinness yesterday, and you know what? We spent 5 million, 6 million plus on Matthew Pearson. That's all I'm going to say about it. Good defender.
Younger and a better version of Matthew Pearson, who's slightly quicker than Matthew Pearson, but I get your point. It's that style of play. He's much better than Matthew Pearson, and that's no disrespect, Matt Pearson.
No, he's a good defender.
I love Matt Pearson. I loved him at Halifax when he was a ball-winning midfield player and playing against us in the National League. But McGuinness is a better version of that, but he's not a £6 million, £5-6 million defender. I agree with you on that. But that was a sign of that. I think everyone had realised we'd got everything that had happened in the off season had gone terribly, terribly wrong.
I don't disagree. All I was saying though is that when we went to sign him, we signed him talking about him being an ex-Arsenal youth player, a player that can play the ball on the floor, etc., and all of those things. That was part of the principle. The same with Roy Walters, the same with those players, is they were there to play and implement that style of football. So that's a recruitment issue as well as a style of play, isn't it?
I think if we've done that, if that is how we. I think anyone that looks at a decent amount of McGuinness will see that's not the case. And I could have told you that before we signed. I'll be entirely honest about that. I also want to talk about something you mentioned about in the Lawrence era when we had youth team products. And yes, you mentioned about the Category 3 Academy. We have to accept that is part of it. If you have a Category 3 academy, you're not going to have youth products from your own youth system that are going to be capable of playing in top end of League One, let alone the Championship. And that's just something you have to accept. Either you've got to accept the club spends more money on that, which I think we all agree to, but that's a long-term process. But secondly,
we have an England under-19 international. We have 2 England under-20 internationals. Like Roy Walters will play for Luton because there's no other option, but the other 2 have to play.
Yeah.
And Joe Taylor, who's a Welsh under-21 international.
Well, we won't get into the Joe Taylor thing and the fact that he seems to don't want to be a Welsh under-21 international because that's not a question for this podcast.
Who does,
But
mate?
also, the other
I wouldn't want to be Welsh.
talking about the whole thing and coming from that point of view about seeing that whatever you say and whether it's the reason for it or not, for everything we say that I would say the elite player pool pathway is very bad for football league clubs and very wide to the system. It, from an England point of view, you have to say it's worked. Whether you believe that's the reason it's worked or not, England have made 2 major finals in the Southgate era. England fans have literally never had it this good. So,
True.
From that point of view, you have to say that maybe that's worked. From that point of view, which is the entire principle of that.
Okay,
But that's obviously again not.
I'll take your point.
A point.
I'll take your
not
point.
The point of this podcast.
I'll take your point about Southgate and the football being turgid, but also being very successful. I'll turn it back into a Luton point of view. I would take turgid football if it was getting results, which it's not. I don't go to football to, it's competitive football in a pyramid. The point of football is to win games, and they always say the sign of a championship winning side is when you can turn up, be really bad, and win the game anyway, or get a result. And we're not near that. We're not near that at all. You know what? In 22-23, we weren't the most thrilling, but we got promoted doing that.
I think if we want to turn it back to where we can say what is Rob Edwards getting wrong, I think the biggest thing yesterday was the set pieces. I mean, we just did not look prepared to stop short. We were aware they were going to play short corners. Luke Williams is famous that he doesn't want to put the ball straight in the box ever from a set piece, from a corner. He's been meaned at press conferences when he was not county manager talking about it. And we know the reason he's gone to Swansea is because, and some Swansea fans will tell you this, they generally do prefer fun football than winning football games. Swansea fans got with Stu Cooper because he was winning football games in a bad way. Mm-hmm. They prefer. They did better under Steve Cooper than they did under Russell Martin, but they preferred Russell Martin. Swansea were a few clubs whose fans are so obsessed with a style of football, they would rather lose playing neat football than that. But Luke Williams is famous for not wanting to put the ball in the box the entirety of the game until the last 20 minutes when we were forced to put the ball in the box and set pieces. And weirdly, we still didn't look like we were going to defend them great. They were playing short corners and we did not look like we were ready for it. And obviously, it wasn't necessarily a short corner, but it was a corner that wasn't put in, that ended up in the goal, because we've ended up with Grimes getting the ball 20 or 25 yards out, and you don't do that with that kind of space, because Matt Grimes is too good for that. Mm-hmm. As you good on the ball.
Nah, but it's...
I like you on the ball. He's not that good on the ball.
So it doesn't matter who got the ball on the edge of the box. They were going to have a free shot, weren't they? I called it.
Not the only one.
I called it play by play. Right, Steve. I think we'll probably wrap this up because everyone in the chat, I don't think they're having a good time with this. Thank you very much, Steve. Really appreciate it, Steve. Really appreciate it, mate. We should probably wrap it up. I don't think people in the chat are having a good time. I will look into my internet as a matter of urgency. I'm blaming the storm though. I'm blaming the storm. Like
you blame the storm. You blame the storm. Yeah. I'll blame the storm as well. Definitely.
Yeah. All I'm seeing in the chat is has it gone freezing like crazy? What's happening with this stream? I'm really sorry for everything that's been happening in this stream. The storm is messing up my Wi-Fi because I'm in a separate building. It happens. I'll look into improving it. I'm sorry to Optimistic Hatter. I'm sorry, Tyler from T-Boys, that we couldn't get you on, guys.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's enjoying this because it's just so awful. I mean, the content's
it's not like
great.
we won either.
Yeah, exactly. We didn't win either. Yeah, just take the any home game phone in and just replay it.
Yeah.
Right. But everyone have a great Sunday, what's the rest of it, and have a great week. Take care.
See you next week.